The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the producers and the individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the staff of the Sun Prairie Media Center, its members or underwriters, the board members of the Media Center Commission, Charter Communications, TDS Telecom, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello, and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and the man seated next to me, his New Year's resolution is more cheese. His name is Mike Roth.
It's a thing. I feel like my skin is too good, so I'm going to eat more cheese and rub donut oil into my flesh every day so I could try to get more normal looking.
That's quite a regimen.
You know, you look like Santa Claus's evil twin Victor.
Right.
Victor Claus.
Victor Claus.
Yes.
Yes, this is it.
You're the guy who runs in after him and steals the toys.
If this was a soap opera, I would be his evil twin. Absolutely.
That is a major change.
Yeah, Santa's gone, kids. Sorry. Santa went home for a while.
He's still alive.
He went home.
He's just home.
Now his evil twin is taking over.
For the rest of the year.
All right, sir. We got some interesting movies as we're rounding out. We're getting towards the end of the year here.
Yeah.
Only a few movies left in 2018. And we're going to get started this week with another streaming spotlight. And this movie has kind of become a phenomenon in the week that it's come out. It came out on Christmas Eve, and everyone's talking about it.
I've had at least 5 people ask me if I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just came out. I know it's going to be our streaming spotlight. I gotta see it. Too many people have asked me, have you seen this?
It's interesting, and I think a lot of it's because of the star power in this movie, but it's interesting. So the new film on Netflix that came out this past week is Bird Box from director Suzanne Bier. It stars Sandra Bullock as a lady named Mallory. This movie takes place, there's this ominous unseen presence that drives most of society to suicide. If you look at this unseen Lovecraftian entity, it will drive you to madness and you will just commit suicide instantly. Yeah. We don't know what it is, where it came from, what it wants, anything like that. And the movie kind of takes place alternating back and forth between when this event first happened in America and then cuts to 5 years later where Mallory and these 2 small children are trying to survive and find refuge in the world. And because if you just look at the outside, odds are this unseen thing is going to drive you crazy and make you kill yourself. Everyone's living in a world of being blindfolded when they're outside, which makes things interesting.
It really does. This movie reminds me of a mix of something that we saw earlier this year was Quiet Place and also Happening. The big difference is I feel like this was way smarter, done a lot better than what the other movies have done.
This reminded me of the ones I had it reminded me of The Mist, and it reminded me, it's got a dash of The Walking Dead in it as people are trying to survive in society and get away from this.
Yeah.
And a touch of it comes at night where you don't know what it is that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Something's happening to people.
And I love that about this film. They didn't feel the need to say, okay, here's the monster. Yeah. There's even a scene where there is a lot of possibilities of what the monster could look like, but it doesn't want to, satisfy that craving from its audience. What's more important is telling the story and keeping the suspense high. And we have 2 stories that go on. There's a prequel, which happens 5 years before the present day, and then what Sandra Bullock has to go through now in order to survive. And I thought both stories were done very well.
Yeah, and you're watching how society, alternating back and forth, how society is falling apart because this happens. This has a really great ensemble cast. You have Trevante Rhodes in here, there's a guy named Tom. You have John Malkovich is in this. Daniel McDonald, who we just saw in Dumplin', she's great in that. Lil Rel Howery, still don't like his name, but I love him in this movie. Rosa Salazar, who I'm watching the movie and I'm going, how do I know this girl? She's the star of Alita, which someday you'll see.
Yeah,
she just has smaller eyes in this movie. This is based on a book from a couple years ago, and the book was well received, and I guess the movie kind of follows pretty closely along with that. But, you see in the 5 years that passed, Sandra Bullock, her characters learn like we can't be attached to anything. So like even these kids, she's got a boy and a girl. She names them. She just calls them boy girl.
Yeah.
Like there should be no attachment. Because we're in a world where you're probably gonna die. So we don't even use names.
Hard decisions might be made.
Yeah.
And they could have possibly have been made in this movie. You can't have that attachment.
Right.
And I thought that felt so real. I mean, really, if you are just hellbent on survival, would you really, name children that might not be there in an hour?
There's some rough moments in here. And I like the choice to not reveal too much about what's going on. I like that mystery. There's moments with these kids, she's got the boy and the girl, and she's rowing down this river trying to find refuge. And there's several moments where the kids have to be left alone while she goes on various little missions. And every time the kid reaches for a blindfold, I'm like, oh, no, please, no, no. And the reason it's called Bird Box is because the birds, they find out, act as kind of like an alarm.
Yeah.
The canary in the coal mine, basically.
That's exactly what I was thinking when they brought out that idea.
So if you carry this box with birds in it, when they start going crazy, stuff's going down.
They also had a lot of clever ideas of how people would get around if they could not see.
Right.
You still need to get to the grocery store. You jump into the car. You have the sensors that help you park, and you just drive really slowly and hope those sensors light up for you.
Yeah.
I thought that was really clever. The only thing I really didn't like about this plot line is I think they made blindness seem way too easy.
Yeah.
People who have been blind all their life, they're not bragging about their run through the forest. It's things like that. But otherwise, really,
you can kind of see because you're wearing a blindfold and you can see light and shadows through said blindfold.
True, but you're not going to see the twig or the root or the rock. But besides that, I think they did a really good attempt at trying to be smarter than other films that are like this.
What did you end up giving Bird Box?
I gave it a 4. I was really happily surprised on how well this was made.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5. I think it's a good movie. It does borrow from some familiar themes, but I really like this ensemble cast. I was sad because, not everyone lives. I was sad to see some people go.
No, and everybody knows it while you're watching it, too, because you see the ending and you see the beginning kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, what do we have on the marquee this week, sir?
Something a little less brilliant. We have another installment in Transformer franchise, but this time we are going to change up the director. We're going to make that Travis Knight, and we're going to make it a prequel. This does a lot of things a lot of the fans of the Transformers movies wanted in the first place. We wanted a little bit more story. We wanted Bumblebee to actually be a VW bug. We wanted a little bit more heart to it, and I think this film tries to deliver that, and I give it kudos for that. But otherwise, all the tropes of all the other Transformers movies, I still see in this. There's a lot of dumb stuff that happens. When, a metal robot that's 10 foot tall, if it hits you in the jaw, like flesh, like anything else that hits you that's huge and metal, it's going to tear off your head. In this movie, just like all the other movies, you're set back 10 feet, you wake up and you're like, oh, what happened? Same thing with explosions. It could happen right at your feet, but explosions don't need to be, they could be close to you. They could be almost on top of you.
Sure.
They're not going to hurt you. They're
Especially
just going
if
to
you're
knock
John Cena.
Yeah, you're just going to be knocked out for a while and be like, whoa, what happened? They go through cliche scenes like, if your heart stops, what happens? Well, you think you're going to die, but at the last minute they pull through. Why? Because it happens in all stupidly written movies. There is action in here. I think people who like the Transformers movies may like this. I don't know, because they do try to make it a little smarter and they do try to put in more story, which is not common in any of the other Transformers movies.
They've gotten worse and worse as they've gone along.
I think this is a definite
Now this
progress.
is getting rave reviews from people. People are loving it.
I don't get it. Maybe they are loving that it's not like the other Transformers,
Last Night.
that they're trying to get a little better, and my score actually kind of reflects on that a little bit. I don't like this movie. I gave it a better score than my Transformers movies in the past because I feel like they're trying to go in a more...
the Transformers movies have notoriously been on our worst of list the last few years.
I think they were trying.
Okay, that's an effort from last time.
Yeah, and therefore I am giving this. Oh, I might as well. Haley Steinfeld, she plays Charlie. She's the main character that finds Bumblebee. She actually did a good job at this.
Okay.
It's just all the crud that Transformers is tied into comes out. It's all about making the scene, whether or not leading up to that scene makes sense. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. I gave it a 2, and I feel like I'm being really generous.
A generous 2.
A generous 2.
Not a glowing review.
But then again, if you like Transformers, you're totally going to love this or not. I don't know. I don't even know why you like Transformers movies. If I'm trying.
I unfortunately, I actually was going to see this because it is one of the big movies, and I was planning on seeing it, and then my illness kind of knocked me out of commission for the night. So I still want to go check this out just because, you give it a meh and other people give it a yeah. And I'm like, I still want to see it. Yeah. I don't know why, because I really hate the Transformers movies.
Usually the stupidity puts me in a coma,
yeah.
And I did not fall asleep until the last 10 minutes of the movie. So, there we go.
Another glowing review.
It's getting better.
I made it almost all the way through. Love it. All right, the next film we have on the marquee is Welcome to Marwen from director Robert Zemeckis. This is based on the 2010 documentary Marwen Call, which, if you know me, you've heard me rave about this. This is my favorite documentary of all time. I think it's the perfect film. But this is based on that. And it stars Steve Carell as Mark Hogenkamp. Mark Hogenkamp, real guy who at one point was beaten by a bunch of guys, a bunch of townies at this bar, basically almost to death. They beat all the memory out of him. He became a whole different man. Unfortunately, he suffers from severe PTSD. He used to be a great artist. He can no longer draw because of everything that was beaten out of him. And so he uses these dolls, G.I. Joe dolls, various dolls, as a surrogate for people in his life. And he lives out a life in a World War II camp or in Nazi Germany that he calls Marwen. In this movie, he calls Marwen. And he gets dolls that are surrogates for everyone that he knows and loves. And he himself is the hero, a guy named Hoagie. And we kind of deal with that. So this movie is... The biggest issue with this movie is that it focuses on all the wrong things, the things that I loved. It doesn't focus on the right things from the documentary that I loved about Mark and his story. The reason that he was beaten those years ago was because he has an affinity for wearing women's shoes. And he had told these guys, they had come out while he was drinking, that he would wear women's shoes to relax. And so they had to beat him for that. And so that's kind of like a huge focus of this movie, is the fact that he wears women's shoes, to the detriment of a lot of the other things that are great about Mark. Also, the motion capture, because half of the movie is watching his dolls, the village of Marwen, come to life, and his characters in that come to life. And the motion capture in that is so incredibly dated. It looks like Polar Express era animation, and that's a Robert Zemeckis. It feels like he's been staying in this type of animation style that he discovered with Polar Express and did that Jim Carrey Christmas Carol. Okay.
Yeah, I thought
Beowulf.
I actually thought all that kind of animation style was really creepy, and those were the reasons why I did not like those movies.
And he hasn't progressed with it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it feels, this is the analogy I came up with the other day, was it feels like a guy, a guy who's on the cutting edge of technology, cool uncle that is like, he gets every gadget right away. He was the first person you knew that got a Palm Pilot.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this guy's really cool, cutting edge. Cut to 15 years later, he's still using that Palm Pilot today. And you're like, oh, the times have passed you.
Yeah.
I see, you stopped where everyone else kept going. And that's what Robert Zemeckis feels like to me with this, because he used to be great with Back to the Future and other films, Forrest Gump. He could tell a story.
Yeah.
And this one felt like he just leaned into, we'll just have this computer animation, and we don't have to really tell the story. Not only that, but it adds these really unnecessary theatric elements to the story of Mark. Adds a character, this character called Deja Thoris. That's one of the dolls that basically treats him like a voodoo doll in this movie. Like he has to do what he imagines it tells him to do in real life.
Okay.
It makes no sense to me. Like it makes him seem like he has zero power over himself. It really irritated me. It also added this prick ex-boyfriend to her neighbor across the street, played by Leslie Mann, for no reason, just a guy to just kind of be a jerk, but to no effect. Like there was so much, and I know I'm probably really attached to this because of my love for the source material, but it felt really off. It had a cool cast. I mean, Gwendolyn Christie, Janelle Monáe, Leslie Mann, they're all fun, Merritt Weaver, but it doesn't capture the sweetness of the documentary or the book about him. And it also just missed on the sweetness, but it also missed on really catching the pain that he's gone through of trying to recover. And it just kind of sat in this middle ground. That animation is creepy, man.
The trailers made it seem like it was a lot better than that. It really felt like they were going to focus on what was happening to him instead of the
It all was
animation
kind
as
of
much.
like, it focused on the shoes that he wore, the women's shoes. It focused on how he would use the Nazis as the surrogates for the guys that beat him, and the Nazis in his Marwen camp, and awful CGI. But so much of his journey of who he is was just kind of pushed aside, and it was really frustrating because that's the best part. That's the meat of this.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I gave Welcome to Marwen 1.5 stars. It's bad. And Robert Zemeckis, man, that guy has been so unreliable over the years. Like I went and looked back at his history of films. You know, I mean, he did Roger Rabbit. He was the cutting edge of technology with Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Did the Back to the Future movies. You know, gave us Forrest Gump. That's the cutting edge of technology. Lieutenant Dan, Magic Legs, all these things. And then you get Beowulf and Polar Express and Christmas Carol. You know, and it's all of a sudden he fell into this rut and fell in love with this weird animation.
With all those Beowulf and it's the eyes.
It's the
eyes
dead doll eyes.
It's so weird. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the kind of the same thing I felt with Mowgli a couple weeks ago, where it falls into that uncanny valley of like it's kind of real, but it's also very much not real, and it makes me uncomfortable to watch.
I rewatched What We Do in the Shadows, and they have that Vlad, he just can't get the faces right.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that a little bit with the Mowgli. I was like, oh, yeah, someone just don't get the faces right.
So unfortunately, Welcome to Marwen, no good, and it's bombing at the box office. So tough one for Robert Zemeckis. What's the last one we have on the marquee, though?
The last one is Mary Poppins, and it is a sequel to the 1960s one.
She returns.
She returns. In this case, Jack, or not Jack, but Michael was one of the kids that she babysat in the original. He is now an adult and he has children, and he is coming across hard times. This is back in Depression-era London, and Jane and Michael, they are working together because Michael's wife died. And there's 2 children, and they need to keep this house. It's a family house, same house from the first one. They won't be able to keep the house if they don't pay the bills, and they need to find some money. At this point, Michael, he becomes separated from his kids and put in a world of his own worry. And that's when Mary Poppins comes in to save the day, to teach the children the things that Michael learned and Jane learned when they were younger. This is the only problem I really have with the movie, is becomes exactly the same as the first movie.
Yeah.
This isn't really a sequel as much as a reboot, which when I look at a movie, I don't want to see a reboot that's supposed to be a sequel. I've seen it a couple of times before. I don't really appreciate it. I want a true sequel. But it doesn't mean that this movie is not fantastic. The colors, the direction, the songs, the songs are all new, but it has a new life to it. Instead of chimney sweeps, we have gaslighters, and they still do that fantastic dance. It's the same, but different. And
that's a lot of what this movie is.
Yeah, and I think it's great as an introduction to get kids into Mary Poppins. If kids haven't seen the original and they watch this, they might want to watch the original and go, wow, these old movies are great also.
Yeah, this movie does a tremendous job of feeling like old Disney. I mean, it recaptures so much of it. I love that director Rob Marshall fought to have hand-drawn animation in this. So that animation, when they go into the pot, into the bowl, it looks like the animation of the 1964 movie.
And
even the clothes look like they're hand-drawn in the way they're designed. And so much of this is, I mean, it just feels like an homage to the original, but also adding new flourishes to it. And I think Emily Blunt was great. I think everyone in this movie was like perfectly cast. I think Ben Whishaw was great as Michael. I love Lin-Manuel Miranda as Jack, the gaslighter. I think he and Emily Blunt have a great chemistry between them and their song and dance numbers.
I would like to see Academies nominate this for wardrobe. I really would.
Yeah.
Because the wardrobe was beyond
Absolutely.
fantastic. And they even bring in a little bit Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke shows up. Angela Lansbury. I mean, these are the throwbacks to old Disney. I mean, they were stalwarts of those Disney films of the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And then you bring in, Colin Firth as a villain in this one. I mean, he's a great one. It's a great cast. And nobody pens a love letter to themselves better than Disney does.
Yeah.
I mean, Disney has perfected the fact of aren't we amazing?
Yeah.
Look at our history. Isn't that the best? I mean, that's all they're doing right now with their films, and I'm all in on it.
Yeah, same here. I was looking forward to Dumbo already.
Yeah.
But after watching something like this, it's like, nope, you're not screwing up, are you? You're just going to keep on rocking this. And I absolutely love this movie. It's great.
It's interesting. There was points in this movie that it started to feel a little long to me. I was like, man, this movie's long. And then I actually looked. It's actually shorter. 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's shorter than the original Mary
Really?
Poppins. The original Mary Poppins, 1964, was 2 hours and 20 minutes long for a Disney kids movie in the 60s. That's insane.
Okay, so the first one feels short. This one I felt average. I really did. Because to me, it felt like it just followed every beat as the original. Not a bad thing. Just not what I wanted from a sequel.
My only real issue with this is I loved everything about it. Like I said, I think the cast was spot on. I think the costumes were spot on. My only issue was I walked out of there, I couldn't remember a single song from this. Like I couldn't, you could pay me money and I could not hum 3 bars of any of the songs in this movie, whereas the original Mary Poppins has, iconic songs. And I don't know if anything's going to come out of this one that 20, 30 years from now, do you have a spoonful of sugar or supercalifragilistic or any of those? Chim Chimney. I don't know if it has that. So that's my only drawback was like, man, Lin-Manuel Miranda is like, he wrote Hamilton. He's the guy who's writing all the music. He wrote the music for Moana. This one, the music, it didn't stick with me. Maybe it's just me.
I did enjoy the music, though. There wasn't a
I did
song
while it
that
was
I
going.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I couldn't hum a tune. But a lot of the tunes, they felt like copies of the original.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe that's why it's not sticking, because it's not new and original.
That is true. There was a lot of it that was like, let's just kind of paint over the original.
This is kind of like Poppins.
Man, I was so happy. I was so happy that Dick Van Dyke showed up in this movie. Loved it. The guy's up there dancing. He's like 106 years old. He's up there doing a soft shoe on a desk.
I should love Angela Lansbury in this, but she wasn't in the original.
No. Well, it was originally offered to Julie Andrews, who was Mary Poppins. And she said she didn't want to distract from the movie by showing up. She said, I don't want to distract from Emily Blunt by being in here. So then they went Angela Lansbury. Of course, she's been in like 1,000 Disney movies, whether as a voice or the star. So they said, okay, the next natural one is Angela Lansbury.
See, I can't see her without thinking there's going to be murder.
There's definitely going to be murder in
There's going to
town.
be murder, and no one expects Angela
Well,
Lansbury. I don't know
people,
why.
and somebody's not going to make it back. Somebody's balloon ride is going to end in tragedy.
It is.
And she's going to write about it. I
You can definitely tell when we watched a lot of television when we as children.
I went into Mary Poppins with kind of high expectations, actually. We'd rewatched the original recently as a family, and I hadn't seen the movie in a long time, and just loved it. And so I went in with high expectations, and I was kind of worried because I also went in with high expectations to Welcome to Marwen, and that did not pan out. So I was a little worried, but man, Mary Poppins is great.
Welcome to Marwen. Wasn't that one of your top 10?
It was my #1 most anticipated film of the year. And
Sorry.
Spoiler alert, it's going to be on a different list at the end of the year. Yeah. But what did you ultimately give Mary Poppins Returns?
I gave it a 3.5, and really that's all due to the fact that I didn't really look at this as a sequel, but more of a reboot.
Yeah, I agreed with you. 3.5 it's a strong 3.5 too. No, not 1.5. Keep going. Yes, it's a strong 3.5. It's really fun. It does a great job of just capturing that spirit that you love.
Do you think it's fair that if you're going to take your kids to a family film this year, the Mary Poppins should
Absolutely.
be it?
Yeah, I took my wife and my daughter, and they loved it. Well, my daughter fell asleep in the opening credits, but She made it 4 minutes into the movie and was asleep. My wife loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens when you sit in the front row. All right, let's take a look ahead, sir. What is going to be coming out the weekend of January 4th? It's not much. It's thin pickings. I'm telling you what, the end of the year is here, and January is right on us. So we have a film first called Eli, which now I just read today is actually not going to be released in the theaters. Now Netflix just bought it last week and is going to release it. So it'll probably be a streaming spotlight for us.
Okay.
But a young boy who's got some sort of medical issues and possible powers.
There's a book about Eli.
Hey, there is. Yeah. That guy was blind too. He would have done well in Bird Box.
He would have.
Oh man, Denzel in Bird Box as Eli? Forget it.
I would love it if they just crossed those.
Sorry for the spoiler alert. Anyways, and then the next movie we have is classic first week of January horror film.
Yeah,
Escape Room.
You know what? These movies are supposed to be the worst, but usually the January horror movie, the first one of the week, I like them. I have been liking them for the past couple of years.
Well, if you've ever gone into one of these escape rooms and you ever wondered what if I never get out? What if I they lock me in? They have total control over me. Turns into a Saw film. Here's your movie. It's coming for you. January 4th. Those are the films that we have for that week.
I'm going to keep my expectations low like I usually do. Hopefully I'll be surprised.
Very good idea. Before we leave, of course, we want to thank our sponsor, The Palace here in Sun Prairie, Marcus Theaters. Thank you for sponsoring our program. It's been busy around there, man. Holiday time, it's busy at The Palace.
They hit a terrible storm because $5 Tuesdays, everybody should know this by now.
On Christmas.
On
and
Christmas.
Great movies out.
Yep.
Big budget movies like Aquaman and Bumblebee, and it was a perfect storm.
Every single one of those employees are fantastic. Next time you guys go to the theaters, please thank them for their service.
That's
they went through hell.
Like they served in Nam.
They did.
Thank you for your service.
They are going to have PTSD after this.
Oh, man. So next week, we got something kind of interesting. Next week, we have Vice. We have Holmes and Watson. So this is kind of wrapping up our year.
Yep.
And then we're also going to talk about our most disappointing films from 2018. We're going to look back and talk about films that disappointed us.
There's a lot on my list. I think this is going to be harder than my best.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll get into it next week, but I think that I dodged some real big stinkers this year when I was looking at my list.
Okay.
I was like, the bottom's not as bad as I remember. Most years I can go like, there's a couple of zero. I didn't give out a single zero this year. I almost feel like I got to give something a zero.
I feel like I gave something a zero.
You might have.
I'm going to have to look at my list again.
Absolutely. But so that's the plan next week is Vice, Holmes and Watson, and our most disappointing films of 2018. If you want to find more from us, Mike, this is episode 244. You can find all those episodes online if you go to sunprairiemediacenter.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Real Reviews, KSUN, KSUN. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter, Real Reviews TV. We'll get you there.
We should do something for our quarter millennial.
Quarter millennial?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be a quarter millennial?
I think a millennial is 1,000, isn't it?
Yeah, 250.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
250.
that's quite.
Man,
Math is awesome.
My understanding there'll be no math. Yeah, we are coming up on both 250 episodes and our 5-year anniversary. So the countdown begins.
Wow.
Kids, send your gifts. Get ready.
We will accept
Put on
anything.
your dancing shoes. Anyways, until next week, though, when we have all these fun movies to talk about, I'm Jamison.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.